Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, today is Mock Draft Monday, so that's what we're going to be doing. And again, we're going to do a nice little twist on it, you know what I'm saying? This time around, especially with the Combine nearly concluded for me, it's wrapping up. I thought this time around we would do sort of the Packers guys kind of a draft. I wanted to look at some characteristics for the Green Bay Packers and whatnot, who they like to draft, all that kind of stuff. And I want to start here because I went in a... I guess I just like doing stuff myself just to kind of see how things turn out. But I saw this article, that's kind of what sparked it for me. February 26 over at Packers Wire, Mark Oldacres wrote Packers athletic benchmarks to know ahead of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Goes through some different stuff about, position by position. Since Gutekunst took over, quarterbacks, broad jump at least 9'6", which is 72nd percentile. Packers haven't drafted a quarterback weighing less than 217 pounds or with hands smaller than 925 since 2005. Thing I always dislike about... The hard part about the draft is you don't draft that many people. It's like, it's been 10 years. It's like, how many quarterbacks have we drafted in 10 years? Number's not very many. I don't mean this example. I'm just saying in general, that's one of the problems. Running back 40 times, 10-yard split, all that kind of stuff. The biggest issue that I had, and I was contemplating just using his article as sort of, I'll just use his benchmarks and we'll just rock and roll with the draft. Part of the issue I have, though, is, if you look at let's say, what is the quarterback 40 thing? 4.75 40-yard dash. That's the average. Well, what does that tell me? Is that fast? Is that slow? What is that? Is that just the average? Because if I'm looking for a quarterback that's running a 4.75, I want to know that that's something characteristically Green Bay Packers, as opposed to that's just the average across the board. So most teams are sitting at a 4.75 or something. You know what I mean? I think I have different numbers, by the way. But so what I ended up doing is I went back to 2018. I don't know why. That's just the data I already had, so I went with it. And I wanted to know three different numbers. Number one, what is the combine average? So everybody that runs at the combine, what is their average for a given position? Let's say quarterback. In fact, let me pull it up so I can just say what it is as we go. So the average time at the combine for a quarterback is 4.77. The average quarterback speed that is drafted is also 4.77. That's across the NFL. And you could say that that's obvious or whatever, but it's not necessarily. The reason why I have a combine and I have an NFL is because some guys don't get drafted. For the Packers, it's a 4.74. So what does that tell me? First of all, not very much. Essentially, the Packers are drafting quarterbacks at almost exactly average, but it is a little faster than average. In general, this isn't something massive. Now, if we're going to do something as far as this exercise goes, yes, I'm going to look for a quarterback that's kind of checking the boxes. Why? Because it's freaking fun. That's why. So I'm looking for a 221-pound quarterback with 116 broad, 7.23 cone, blah, 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 blah. But in terms of what I actually learned, not a bunch. And so that was kind of, and it's sort of a two-parter. Number one is, okay, you did the experiment, what do we learn? But then number two is the mock draft. So we'll see how much time this takes. We might just rip through the mock draft, do that for fun, and then kind of come back and look at it. Or if we don't have time, then we'll save that for another day. I will say, though, and I didn't add this. I don't know if I can add this. Let me see if I can over on patreon.com/pack_data. Okay, good. I can attach it. So there is an Excel file where you can look at all of this data for yourself if you want to just look at it. But there's also an article here. It's just kind of 5 surprising ways the Packers are blah, blah, blah. And looking at those 5 major characteristics that separate not just this is what it is, but this is what it is in comparison to what other teams are doing, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's do the mock before I get too carried away with looking at some of this data here. I do want to point out one thing, though, and maybe other content creators have talked about this already, and this is old news that's new to me. We have not invested in a corner in a very long time in the draft. Now, some of you may be thinking, what the heck are you talking about? We drafted a corner last year. Right, we did. Micah Robinson in the 7th round. You know who we drafted in 2024 at corner? One corner, Kalen King, 7th round. Do you know what corner we drafted in 2023? We had, I think, 13 different picks. We drafted one corner with those 13 picks. It was Carrington Valentine, 7th round. Do you know what corner we drafted before that in 2022? Nobody. Not a single corner. Quay, Wyatt, Watson, Ryan, Dobbs, Tom, Inigbare, Carpenter, Ford, Rasheed Walker, and Samori Toure. You have to go back to 2021 when we drafted Eric Stokes in the 1st round. We also drafted Shamar Jean-Charles in the 5th round. In 2020, by the way, the Jordan Love year, 0 corners drafted. In 2019, we drafted Kadar Holman in the 6th round. And then 2018, Gutekunst's first year, we went Jair and Josh Jackson with the first 2. So after 2018, we have one investment in a corner that isn't day 3. One, and it's Eric Stokes. Investments at corner in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. The entire list is Eric Stokes. That's it. I'm honestly impressed. I'm honestly impressed that our corner group is not significantly worse than it is. So trying to get some DB information, which, by the way, on that sheet it is just put into DB, is very difficult because almost the entire sample size is going to be day 3 guys, and I doubt your prototypical, like what you're really looking for is going to shine through there. But I think to help myself out, I will rely on Mr. Oldacre's cornerback and safety numbers, just because, again, so many of these positions are just listed as DB. So, anywho, let's get started. So, also because it's meant to be kind of a fun exercise, I wanted to spread out the positions rather than doubling and tripling down, so that we can kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of different likes, dislikes, or whatever. Okie doke. With the 52nd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. Might be a touch of a reach, but not really. He's sitting at 47 on the consensus board. We're at 52. It's still within reach. So for this one, on this one, as Mark put it, this is a big stopwatch position. Packers have a 4.46 average 40 time, which is 81st percentile. Also 83rd percentile in the 3-cone. And they also generally don't like super light cornerbacks. So it whittled it down to having actually a ton of options. Cornerback is more plentiful than any other position. Safety is relatively close. And so when it came to guys that actually checked the boxes, I didn't have a ton for pick 52, which I guess is mostly fine because we don't really care as much about that. One is safety Kamari Ramsey. I didn't want to take a safety in the 1st round. Linebacker Anthony Hill, who's actually getting a lot of hype recently for being a possible Packer. I don't think most Packer fans would be happy, but it's a thing. And then Romello Height. And he's not a super perfect fit because of the size. He's also probably going to be gone already, but it's there, and there aren't a ton of edge options with all of them being so small. So that left me with one option, which is Chris Johnson. But this one I think a lot of guys would be excited about. There's a lot of corners that I think Packer fans are really into. Johnson is he's definitely up there. He's a big physical corner. Hits like a safety. Had a really good Senior Bowl. No injury stuff. None of that kind of stuff. Real clean prospect. With the 84th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Caleb Proctor, defensive tackle, Southeastern Louisiana. So this is a new one, even to the big board. Everybody we pick, by the way, will be added to our big board. Thank you again to all our subscribers. Link is in the description. But one of the biggest things when you look at Packers defensive tackles is the weight, which is actually kind of a funny thing because the NFL average for a defensive tackle is about 307 pounds. The Packers come in at about 304, so they're a little bit lighter, and that's a pretty big disparity based on how close they are to the NFL average. The combine average, though, is 299. So on average, your defensive tackles that are running are sub 300 pounds. However, the NFL drafts at an average of 306.66, meaning the bigger guys get drafted and the smaller guys tend to not. That said, though, the Packers do lean light, and he's coming in at 6'2", 291 pounds. Another factor is they tend to be a little bit bigger on broad jump, 2.5 inches more than the average. Some of the other slightly lesser metrics, the bench press is actually less, which makes sense. You're getting smaller defensive tackles are probably going to be a little less strong. The vert is a little better. So generally what you're getting are a little bit smaller, not quite as strong, more explosive. The vert and the broad jump are more so. So that gave me a handful of different defensive tackle prospects, 4 of them, in fact, in the next 4, all of them in these next 4 picks here. But given the need at defensive tackle, I decided to go with him. He is a small school guy, so it's hard to know, but he was quite dominant. Looking at his PFF grades, he got his first actual start 2023, 66 grade. 2024 was a 78 grade, and then 2025 he had an 87 grade, 74 run defense, 90.4 pass rush, 39 pressures and 9 sacks on 300 attempts. He apparently showed up to college at 255 pounds. He left as a 291-pound All-American. He became the first defensive player in program history to win Southland Conference Player of the Year, earned first-team FCS All-American nods from AFCA and FCS Football Central, plus second-team AP, and was Buck Buchanan Award finalist. One of the biggest highlights for him is that he actually ended up playing LSU in 2024. He recorded 2 sacks and 3 tackles for a loss in that game against legitimate NFL talent. At the Combine, he ran a 4.79 40, which was second among all defensive tackles, a 1.69 10-yard split, 33-inch vert, elite change of direction fluidity, dominated on-field drills with spin moves, pad pop, and low bend. Appeared in all 48 career games with 0 missed time, evolving from rotational piece to the undisputed leader of a top 10 FCS defense. Biggest comp is Maurice Hurst, which makes sense. Former Raiders defensive tackle. I think he was a first-round pick. Quick twitch, undersized but explosive interior penetrator with violent hands, elite first step, relentless pursuit, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, for those of you that are like, well, we don't need that. We needed a run. Again, we're using this as an opportunity to explore different things. I'm not just going to do a mock draft every week where, we just do the same crap over and over again. We're kind of looking at it from different angles, and this is characteristics, and part of it is looking at what the Packers' general characteristics are. It's somewhat of a useless exercise because it's such a small sample size that we very rarely drafted anybody, and of those sample sizes, you end up with day 3 guys that are going to completely throw things off because the Packers are outside of their comfort zone because they're day 3 guys. But it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's, worth looking at. Okay, why don't we take a break here? We'll come back with our pick 120. We've got 6 more picks, so we'll do 3 and 3, and then we'll get up out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. With the 120th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Parker Brailsford, offensive center, Alabama. He's from Arizona. But for interior offensive line, the big one is the broad jump. So it's kind of interesting because unlike what you find at defensive tackle, it's broad jump and then bench press, which is kind of weird because, whatever. But also it follows in line with the defensive tackles. Weight is a negative, almost minus 2.5 there. Typical average in the NFL is 311. And we're at 311.5. We're at 309. So a little bit smaller, a little bit more explosive, but with an added tweak of if you happen to be kind of strong as a smaller explosive guy, we dig that. And if you look at it, the broad jump, first of all the top broad jump guys are tackles. Of the top 7 broad jumpers, 6 of them are offensive tackles. However, the top overall broad jumper is Parker Brailsford, the center out of Alabama. In fact, the third highest was a 9.7. Second highest is a 9.8. He's a 9.10. So by 2 inches, he jumped further than Enrique Cruz. He's also coming in at 289 pounds, so he's a smaller dude. I don't see what he did in the bench, but big-time need at center. Extremely explosive. And he fits the mold. Well, at least he fits the mold of what we used to like. And maybe he doesn't fit anymore because we want to just get these giant, massive maulers. But he's been a very good pass blocker for 3 years. He was a good run blocker for 1 year at Washington. Then at Alabama, for whatever reason, different blocking scheme or something, he went down to being a 60 type of run blocker, 61 and 60 run blocking grades. Pass blocking, 78, 82, 76. So that seems perfect. That's what the Packers have always kind of had. Mediocre run blocking and good pass blocking. So I think it's a match made in heaven. But he's a 4-star recruit. He switched schools because the head coach, Kalen DeBoer, went from Washington to Alabama, and he followed him over there. He's a permanent captain over at Alabama. Did deal with a high ankle sprain late in 2025, missed the Eastern Illinois game, limited versus Auburn, yet thugged it out. That's their quote, not mine. Played every meaningful snap in the playoff run and Rose Bowl. Teammates and coaches called him a total warrior. Pain tolerance and leadership separate him from the flashier prospects. He's a zone scheme guy. So again, if we're wanting to be a little bit more powerful up front, I don't know that it's the best fit. If we're kind of getting back to our Matt LaFleur type roots, this would be a great fit. Best comp, which is pretty appropriate, Tyler Linderbaum. Undersized but explosive athletic center who dominates zone schemes, reaches the second level at will, and processes the game at an elite level. Brailsford is a touch stronger and similar leadership DNA. With the 158th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Faalili Faamoa, offensive tackle, Wake Forest. Looks like it's Fa'ali Fa'amoe. Yeah. For the tackles, it's real weird because you're looking at underweight, low broad jump. That's actually the biggest one, is kind of a lesser broad jump. But the positive is bench. So stronger, smaller tackles, I guess. Kind of similar to the interior, actually. It was counterintuitive because they're a little smaller, but their bench is more. Well, that's what I went with. And he was the only tackle that I could find that kind of fit. So I figured we better take him. And actually, I had somebody just reach out to me, I forget who it was, but reach out to me recently talking about tackle and, what happens if one of our tackles goes down. The reality is, we'll see. Obviously, we're going to have to get a lot more bodies in here or whatever, but we're in pretty dire straits right now as far as tackle. Potentially, if Zach Tom went down, we could, move Belton over to tackle, but then we don't have anyone on the inside. So I do think tackle is something to keep an eye on. Again, we'll see what happens in free agency. We'll see who we end up re-signing or signing or whatever. But I would definitely be on the lookout for some tackles. As far as PFF is concerned, he didn't necessarily blow the doors off in any real capacity. Spent 3 years at Washington State. His pass blocking got better every year, 58, 65, 73. His run blocking, though, was 62, 57, 55. Again, pretty Packers. 2025, he was at Wake Forest, 71 pass blocking, 64 run blocking. Again, Packers. He's a 3-star recruit out of Leon High School in Pago Pago. How do you like that? Originally rated as a strong side defensive end, top player from American Samoa in 2020. He captained his high school team and earned a spot in the 2020 Polynesian Bowl. Growing up, he spent summers working long hours on a banana plantation and construction sites with his father, forging the blue-collar work ethic that defines his game. He chose Washington State over offers like Hawaii and quickly became one of the portal's top offensive tackles in December of 2024 before landing at Wake Forest. He earned 2025 All-ACC honorable mention, helped the Demon Deacons post the ACC's 6th best rushing attack while allowing just 14 sacks as a team. 38 career starts at right tackle, 0 missed games after an early 2024 injury, proving himself durable. He was at the Shrine Bowl this offseason, looked very good there, flashed heavy hands, displacement power in the West practices, throwing edge rushers to the ground, showing the mauling style scouts love. Primary comp, Vidal Alexander. Same heavy, long-arm build, nasty hands, power to displace in the run game. Both transitioned from raw backgrounds and thrived when moved inside. But, I don't know if we're doing. And no off-the-field nonsense. Final pick before the break here. At pick 200 of the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Caleb Elarms or linebacker TCU. Again, the biggest trait for linebacker, like many others, is the broad jump. Packers seem to prize that a little bit more than the NFL at 2.33 inches. Also about 2 pounds lighter than the NFL average, 236.5 compared to 238.5. So, lighter, more explosive. Got it. Coming in at 6'2", 234 pounds. He's a 4-star recruit, went to Cal initially. He redshirted in 2021 at Cal after an ACL tear, limited to special teams in 2022, and then broke out in 2023 with 92 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a pick, all Pac-12 second-team honors as a sophomore starter. Then he transfers to TCU in December. In all reality, he didn't grade out super well in Cal. He obviously was well enough to hit the transfer portal and have some offers, and things went very well for him. But 60 grade, 53 run defense, 70 tackling, 60 coverage. Transfers to TCU, jumps from a 60 to a 76 overall. Run defense goes from a 53 to a 70. Coverage goes from a 60 to a 69. Then his second and final year at TCU jumps from a 76 to an 84. Run defense from a 70 to a 90. Tackling from a 71 to an 86, coverage from a 69 to a 75. So he just improved across the board, was very, very good as a linebacker. He was the Alamo Bowl defensive MVP with 11 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss versus USC. At the Combine, he ran a blazing 4.47 40, which was the second fastest among linebackers, a 40-inch vertical, which was the second best, 10.4 broad jump, and elite agility numbers at the 2026 Combine. Obviously, the ACL injury is something to keep an eye on. I think the 2022 year of all special teams is probably going to work to his favor in all seriousness. No real red flags. Primary comp, EJ Speed, Colts. Similar athletic testing, special teams first mentality that transition to valuable rotational snaps, plus tackling improvement over time. Key similarity, explosive range, and blitz timing. Alrighty, let's take our final break. We'll come back and look at our final 3 prospects. With the 237th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Mason Rieger, edge rusher, Wisconsin. When it comes to edge, it's all about weight. That's the one biggest correlation here. 3 pounds heavier than the NFL average. In fact, the Combine average is 256. The NFL average is 262. So heavier guys end up getting drafted more. The Packers take it even further at 265. Again, this may change course with the new defensive coordinator at the helm. That may have already been taking place previously, but that's the number one thing we're looking for. The second is the vert. Not a massive difference, but 1.15 inches more so than the NFL average. So big dude with a big vert. Actually gave us several options. It was a little bit further down on the need. Like I said, Romello Height at 52, Danny Dennis Sutton around 84, and then there was nothing until Mason Rieger. And then we've got options at 254 and 257 as well. But I wanted to kind of take a look at him. I kind of made fun of him a little bit for having a bad day. Not really made fun of him, but I had heard he was having a bad day, and I told you about it. So I figured we'd take a swing right here. It is becoming a little bit of a need. But zero-star recruit out of Hoffman Estates, Illinois. He spent 5 years at Louisville from 2020 to 2024 as a defensive line mover before becoming a full-time outside linebacker in his lone season with the Badgers. Played 45 career games with real production in 2021 to 2023 before missing all of 2024 with a knee and leg injury that required surgery. In 2025, he started 11 of 12 games for Wisconsin, logging 33 tackles, 5 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, 45 pressures, while earning all Big Ten honorable mention. He then torched the East-West Shrine Bowl with 3 sacks and defensive MVP. He was a walk-on at Louisville, so he paid his own way there, earned a scholarship after flashing a redshirt freshman season. Again, the vert was quite positive, which is part of the reason he ended up getting picked. He ended up with a 9.53 RAS, so he obviously didn't have a terrible combine. Hilariously, primary comp, Kyler Fackrell. Tall, linear edge with plus length, twitchy get-off, relentless motor, and scheme versatility. Never the strong anchor, but created consistent pressure and made plays in space. Love it. Oh, and his PFF, he, again, 3 years at Louisville. Didn't actually play a ton. 21 through 23, his highest snap count was 340, which is relatively low. But his first 2 years, he graded in the 60s and then exploded in 2023 with an 80 grade. 71 run defense, 80 tackling, 81 pass rush, 78 coverage, 22 pressures and 5 sacks on just 162 attempts. Again, didn't play in 2024, but then goes to Wisconsin, 82 grade, 78 run defense, 83 pass rush, which includes 45 pressures and 6 sacks on 292 attempts, which would be 292, 15.4% pressure rate. It's pretty good. With the 254th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Joe Fagnano, quarterback, UConn. So the biggest thing for the quarterbacks is the vertical. Also weight and broad jump a little bit, but the vert is real big. So for reference, the broad jump, 1.33 more. Weight is about 2 pounds more. Vert is 3.69 inches more than the NFL average. That's 31 is the average, 31 and a half is the average for combine participants. 32 is the average for NFL draft picks. 35.75 is the average for the Packers. But Fagnano, 6'4", 225, he also fits the prototype, height, weight, all that stuff that the Packers tend to go for. He's got a ton of college experience is the one drawback here. Someone's at the front door. 4 years at Maine. Transfers to UConn in 2023, just 43 snaps. 2024, he gets 224 snaps, has a 70 grade, 70 passing grade. And then finally, 2025, he gets an actual shot, 286 attempts, 70% completion rate, 34.62 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt, 28 touchdowns, 1 interception. 87 grade, 82 passing grade, and an 80 rushing grade for good measure. 3.2% big-time throw rate, just 1.7% turnover-worthy play rate, 116 passer rating. He's another zero-star high school product, playing in the Williamsport area, Pennsylvania. A very rare 7th-year senior, 44 career starts across the FCS and FBS. Fagnano exploded in 2025 with all the stats I just said. while leading UConn to a program-best 9 regular season wins. 2025 Heisman candidacy, David O'Brien semifinalist, New England Gold Helmet, Bulger Low Award, and all New England honors. Overcame a 2023 season-ending shoulder injury to post back-to-back productive campaigns. The final year with very few interceptions is also very positive because he actually had a lot of turnover issues. He was at the Shrine Bowl, performed very well there. Primary comp is Easton Stick, veteran college producer with good size, elite football IQ, low turnovers, limited arm, athletic upside who carved out a long career as a trusted backup. But with our final pick, at pick 257, the Green Bay Packers select Khalil Dinkins, tight end, Penn State. I like Dinkins. This one was kind of fun because a lot of these guys were way off the beaten path. They're at pick 500 or whatever the case. So it was the 257 was the catch-all for all these guys that are way off the beaten path here. But once again, when you look at tight end, and this is kind of, if there was one big thing, one big takeaway across the board, they like big guys. Weight and bench were the two biggest ones for tight end. There's really no other correlation like at all. So bigger, stronger tight ends. Khalil Dinkins came in at 6'4", 251. He's the son of 9-year NFL veteran Darnell Dinkins. PFF absolutely freaking hates him. 57, 56, 65, and 56 are his receiving grades, although he didn't really receive all that much. His blocking grades are definitely better, 65 and 70, looking at run blocking and pass blocking. Special teams, probably where he excels, although his grades did decline over the years. 74, 75, and then 67, 67. Still not terrible, kind of across the board. Rotational contributions across a loaded tight end room with guys like Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, and Tyler Warren. He had elite efficiency when targeted. Logged over 1,100 offensive snaps, primarily as an inline player and H-back blocker. He originally came to Penn State as a 210 to 220-pound receiver. Coaches immediately flipped the script, block first, catch second. His college stats didn't really tell the full story. Limited targets in a run-first offense masked his hands, body control, and yak ability. At the Combine, he ran a 4.72 40 with elite short area agility, 7.28 3-cone, 4.33 shuttle, to remind scouts why he was a 4-star high school pass catcher. NFL teams will now see the complete tight end they couldn't fully evaluate at Happy Valley. Never missed significant time despite heavy special teams and blocking duties. Only minor camp absences in 2024 before returning stronger. Pro comp, Brenton Strange, Jacksonville Jaguars, fellow Penn State product, arrived as a blocking first prospect, earned snaps through physicality and reliability, then flashed receiving ability in the NFL. Exact same pipeline, pedigree, blocking dominance, and late blooming receiving traits. No red flags, clean off the field profile. Anyways, folks, I got to get going doing some Packernet After Dark here, so there you go. Appreciate everybody, appreciate all your support, and I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.